Like, as soon as I saw this, my first gut reaction was just like, this is messed up. Being completely transparent, and I don't care if people are offended at this point. And try to tell people, no, it's because I was ignorant my whole life, or dirtiest people on campus. Please check your privilege. Does that make sense? Because I'm confused.
I'm just saying.
Granted, I'm never this early to things, and I never actually wake up and see these things on time. And I think that's a problem with all of us. I think we live in our own bubbles, and we don't really take the time to step back and reflect on the things that we see on social media, because at this point you're probably numb from it. And it just got me thinking about just how ridiculous it is that I'm sitting here in a position of privilege, being able to go onto the internet and see these things, to have internet, to have a place to sleep, to have a place to call home in a pandemic. And no, I'm not the most richest person, or I have a bunch of things that I can offer other people, but if anything, I can offer them a little bit of advice. So this morning I woke up to this post. So my school has a bunch of different student run oh my gosh, there's a lot of kids. There's kids playing outside, so I don't know, they wake up earlier than us. It's 10:47 a.m. and somehow they're more productive and more active than us, so a lot of screaming outside, but let's just ignore it. I think that this message is important. This morning I woke up and my school has a lot of student-led Instagrams, and some of them have been a lot more racy than others that I've seen, at least. I know there's SLU Confession, there's SLU, by the way, I go to St. Lawrence University, and we abbreviate our school's name to SLU, so you're going to be hearing me referring to St. Lawrence as SLU, and in the past has been SLU Confessions. There's been multiple SLU Kiss and Tells. Like, there's a lot of very controversial, I would say, or like just kind of, it feels wrong. Just giving it as an example, SLU Makeout was an Instagram account that was created by someone. They would go around to parties and take pictures of people that were making out, and then they would post them on Instagram, and then people would comment under, and then some people would be like supporting each other.
Oh yeah, that's my
friend, or this is whatever. But that's just an example of where the area of topics has been when it comes to students from my school creating Instagrams that are not necessarily like school run. But this popped up on my timeline. They shared it onto their Insta story, and because they were obviously very much offended by this, I think that you guys should all hear this. So the premise of this Instagram account is called Sluspeaks. You can look it up yourself, and basically they ask students or anybody or alumni, people that go to St. Lawrence or to our school, to upload anonymously their stories or confessions of things they've experienced, so that we can address them and comment without the fear of being tagged. Somebody anonymously uploaded this, and I'm going to read it directly, and it says, it's called International Students Are Kind of Dirty. I was sitting in one of my science classes. Two white girls go up to present their independent project. Part of their hypothesis was that the eye house would have more bacterial growth than other parts of psychs because international students are kind of dirty. And this was in quotes. International students are kind of dirty. It was an upper level biology class, and that was a valid scientific reason to them. Tagged your SLU alum. Now, if you're not enraged by this, then you should be. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to sit here and reflect on the little things and what we can do to be proactive. Now, at my college, they've recently started to try to open up. They've been trying to rebrand, essentially, and they've included a new diversity and inclusion clause into their rules for the school or whatever. And honestly, I think it's a good effort, but it's not enough. And I think that it's important for us to recognize the fact that yes, you are making an effort, but you're not doing enough, especially not in these times. So today I've decided to make this video to give you a little bit of advice, because I've definitely felt this way before. And I mean, sitting here as an Afro-Latina, like, I don't feel like it is even my space to sit here and speak about it and tell you. I don't want to sit here and tell you issues about race and all the issues that are going on in the world right now. You should be doing that research. But if this could inspire even one person to go out there and do the bare minimum, I think that that's what it would take for all of us to work together to make change and do things better in general, and give you a little guide on how you can keep your college in check. Now, my school has created, it's like a general SLU bias incident reports, where you can go in there and you can tell those incidents of maybe it was a race thing, maybe it was, you don't know who it is, but a friend of a friend of a friend told you this happened, and you can go on there and provide as much detail and evidence of what you heard, what you saw, and then the school will take that information and they will do an investigation. Now, most of the time, people are afraid to speak up. People are afraid to tag their names onto something, especially if I'm hearing it from a friend
who heard it from another friend or who witnessed it.
they don't want to report. How am I gonna sit here and report for them? That's their choice, that's their agency, their decision to try to report and speak up. I'm not trying to tell you to speak up, but I think it's really good that my school created a forum where you, as a person who isn't directly involved, can still be proactive and can at least initiate an investigation to something. And if the parties involved don't want to continue with the investigation, yes, they are perfectly in their right to, but the school has at least acknowledged the fact that this incident happened, this incident of race, this incident of prejudice, ignorance, anything has happened, and we are listening and we are investigating and we are actively taking part and letting the community know that this is not okay at our school. So I think that's really important. If at your college or your school they don't have a system like this, I encourage you to try to have one, because it sends the right message. You know, it's not gonna change in one day. We're not gonna solve racism in one day. We're not gonna solve people's issues, and we're not gonna solve the world's ignorance in one day. But if one little thing can get us closer to that, I think that we should reach for it. So today I'm going to be giving you 3 steps or 3 guidelines, rules, whatever you want to call it, that you can take to be an active ally, an active supporter, and to constantly improve your relationship with race and with educating yourself on what's going on with the world right now. So first up, I want to start with the old saying, because we hear it all the time, and this applies to this situation, and I'll tell you how. People always say that the first step to get help is to acknowledge that you have a problem. Well, sit there and acknowledge. Look at yourself. Where is my privilege? Where do I stand in this situation? No, I don't directly know how this affected this person of color. I'm not Latina, I'm not Black, I'm not any of this, but I can step back. If I can just do the bare minimum and step back and realize that something was wrong in this situation. This post was not okay. What do I do next? That little inspiration, that little question, you're already being an active member and you're already trying to solve the problem. And that's way better than you sitting there and letting it continue. People always say that getting help is the first step because the person is acknowledging that they've made a mistake or that they need something to work on. If we sit there and we acknowledge the fact that we are human, we are going to make mistakes, and maybe if somebody called me out on anything that I did, it's not a time for me to get defensive. Maybe it's a time for me to get reflective, because there are certain privileges. Everybody has a certain amount of privileges, disadvantages, and they need to figure out what those are. And I feel like this is the perfect time for you to be sitting there acknowledging this, especially now that we are in a pandemic and it feels like nothing's normal, nothing's going right. The best thing you can do is to start learning something new, challenge yourself, stay creative, be more proactive in trying to change the world, and trying to bare minimum just educate yourself. You don't have to go and save the world. It's not going to happen. It's been happening for years. The civil rights movement happened how long ago? Slavery, it's in the textbook. And if you don't know, or they didn't cover all of it, then go educate yourself. There's plenty of stories. Posting a little black square onto your story is not enough. And that's why I was inspired to make this, because it's just not enough. Now, the second thing that you can try to do in times like these, even the smallest impact makes a difference. I struggled with this a lot, just trying to come into myself and trying to find my position and my identity and where I belong in the world. Stuff that you start to deal with when you get to a certain point in life. And as a senior, I realized it feels like it's too late. I feel like at this point, everybody else has it figured out. Everybody knows these things. Like, why should I sit there and speak up? Why should I sit there and advocate for anybody else or say anything when it's not my place to speak? Well, sure, it may not be my place to speak, but that was the first step. I acknowledge the fact that it's not my place to say something like this. But what can I do, even if it's the bare minimum, to be a help to the situation and not a problem? Well, I wrote a bias incident report, and I'll put it right here. I don't really care. I'm being very transparent. I don't think this is the time for you to be polite. I don't think this is the time for you to sit here and make excuses for yourself, make excuses for others, or as to why you're not being productive. I report in like 2 minutes. Like, I'm not even kidding. Maybe it was because I was highly upset, and let me just tell you, and it's okay. And I acknowledge the fact that maybe I wrote it a little, as soon as I saw this, my first gut reaction was just like, this is messed up. How can somebody say that where the international students live on campus, on my campus, is the dirtiest place compared to everywhere else. How do you know this? Why is this a scientific thing that you're trying to prove? Why are you scientifically trying to prove a racist ideology? And that's what it is. It's racist. And I'm not sitting here to make you feel bad, whoever you are. Clearly, whoever anonymously uploaded this was affected in one way or another. It could have been an international student in that level bio class trying really hard to like pay attention and be a part of the class. They're an alum, so they've graduated and they experienced this, and now they are gonna take that with them for the rest of their lives, or it's like always in the back of their head. This is just another piece of evidence that the world is against me. They don't understand me. People with privilege, the white people, the people at the top, the people with money, the people with whatever advantage over me, they don't care. The professor in that classroom sat there and they approved the project. This was an independent project, meaning that you have to get approval for this. I mean, either from your professor, if they're a good professor at all, I'm sure they're gonna be like, give me your topics and I'm going to tell you if this is a good enough topic. This professor saw it, and I'm not trying to place blame over here. I'm just trying to point out the fact that in certain situations, people need to start reflecting, acknowledging why would this not be okay. This is the time for you to constantly be learning, and I feel like if these people had been reading, had been more aware, had grown up in a different environment, or been a part or a disadvantage, because when you're in a position of privilege, you can't see what's around you. You're not focused on that. If the professor, if the two girls that were in this
upper level bio class,
by the way, I can't stress that enough, clearly have been through a lot of experiences at this college, and you're still this ignorant, then why are you wasting your money? Go home. You literally learned nothing. You think that the international students are the dirtiest people on campus? Like, just straight up, just check yourself right there. That's a perfect time for you to be like, what's going on? So, like I said, even the smallest impact makes a difference. So that's why I reported it. And yes, in the heat of the moment, I sat there and I replied immediately, and I was like, hey, this is what I'm gonna say, and I'll read it to you because I have no shame. And yes, I used a few choice words, but like I said, this is not the time for you to be polite. This is not the time for you to start questioning every little thing that you're doing and get defensive about it and try to tell people, no, it's because I was ignorant my whole life, or I grew up in this environment, blah, blah, blah. That's not an excuse. You need to sit back and reflect in order to grow, in order to better yourself. If you're not in a constant state of growing and learning and trying to educate yourself, then what's the point? Literally, like, you're just gonna remain stagnant. You might as well not do anything. Why are you going to college? You're not gonna contribute to society in a productive way that is inclusive to everybody on the planet. So why? This was what I replied immediately after reading International Students Are Kind of Dirty post on Instagram, and I commented, the fact that this was even a project that was allowed to be followed through at SLU despite its racist undertone is just more evidence that SLU preaches diversity and inclusion for a pretty picture and a pamphlet, but doesn't mean it, because it's all about the cash, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Because it's all about the cash to them. And whoever runs this account and doesn't call them out is complicit in continuing the stigma and just as guilty by association. This is not the time to be nice and polite while people continue to be this ignorant. Step the fuck up or remain part of the problem. I said what I said, and I'll say it again louder for the white kid in the back with the AirPod that is thinking about how their biggest issue next semester is that their mommy and daddy can't come to their canceled sports season while people are dying. That was my immediate response. And while I will admit maybe I shouldn't curse when I'm talking about a serious issue or serious topic, I'm human, and I can sit there and acknowledge how that looks, right? I'm just trying to be an example. Yes, I'm gonna make a mistake, and I'm probably gonna say a bunch or a million things that's offensive to so many different people, but at this point, good, Like, at this point, good. I want you to get offended. I want you to be upset at me. I want you to sit there and I want you to reflect on why you're upset. Sit back and consider it. Why am I offended by what she's saying? What is going to happen next? How can I go against what's happening? I'm upset at the post that was posted. International students are kind of dirty. Reflect on that. Why are you upset? What can I do to help? People of color, LGBTQ, black people, literally every person that is at a disadvantage is tired of preaching why they're at a disadvantage. If you are in a position of privilege, power, or whatever it may be, leadership, it's your responsibility to make sure that everybody is included at the table. It's your responsibility to make sure that you speak up because they're tired, okay? okay? They're tired of the same exact argument, the same exact, you are racist, you are ignorant. Say that daily. If you still don't understand or you can't figure out what privileges you have about other people because you're so focused on a canceled season, while there are international students that can't get back into the country dealing with mental health issues, there are students that can't afford to quarantine themselves in New York City before they return back to their school because it's too expensive to get a hotel, while people are sitting there dying daily still and the numbers are increasing, and you're worried about the most simplest thing, while students are sitting there in class feeling like shit because their classmate thinks that they are dirty based on the color of their skin or where they come from or who they are, their identity, something they can't change. Does that make sense? Because I'm confused. I'm just saying. I'm really quite confused. And after taking some time to reflect on this, because like I said, this was my heated response in the moment, and I was like, okay, now what do I do? Well, I decided I should probably tag the school and let them know that this happened, and I'll be reading a few examples of what other people have anonymously posted. This is the kind of thing that will inspire other people to get outraged, get upset. You need to be upset. You need to be impolite. You need to be in people's faces because people of color are tired, okay? Race issues should not be a problem in 2020. And we're still trying to solve something that our ancestors and people have been fighting about for centuries. What the, like, just saying. So I decided to tag St. Lawrence, and I will admit it was a little petty of me. I was in the heat of the moment, but yes, it was petty. And I decided I want to do something, but you know, it's not my place, but I want to go and I want to let them see what's happening in their school. I want them to see and acknowledge it and look into it. And sure, maybe you won't get anything out of it, but if anything, people paid attention to it. People heard the story. People thought about it and reflected on it. And that is the bare minimum for you to sit back and reflect on why this was a problem to be posted, why this was a problem for that international student to sit there in that classroom and experience that negative experience, why that's a problem. If you could reflect even for just a second, then the purpose of this video was met, and we're 1 centimeter closer to changing things. Oops. And then I tagged my school. I would like to follow up with a bias incident report. I want to see the same energy about this as other times when me and another POC student were called to discuss a stick and poke old Instagram account that was not active. Do better. Now, I don't want to talk on that incident. I don't think that's the importance of this video, but I was just trying to highlight the fact that the school tends to focus on things that don't matter as much in the moment. You know, it's kind of like you're a doctor and one of your patients has a whole arm that was cut off and you're going to focus on the one with the cold. No. It's equity, you know? It's not about equality, it's about equity. Somebody needs more help elsewhere. So why are you focusing on things that aren't as important? I'm sure there was 1,000,001 people that were feeling shitty because of something their classmates said. And what are you gonna do? Like, we've lived in a society where whenever somebody says something shitty or offensive, we laugh it off. We pretend like it wasn't there. We pretend like it's not happening because we think that that's just how things are. But that's not how they need to. This is the time for you to speak up and to start talking, if anything, for the people that feel like this is just normal. The people that feel that they can't go out there and say anything because they've been saying something. They've been screaming it at you for their entire lives, and you're sitting there ignorant as fuck, and you're not doing your job to educate yourself. It's not anybody else's job to educate you. You need to sit there and you need to educate yourself and try to better your life and be a better person for the sake of, even if you're not concerned with the world, for the sake of freaking humanity. This is like my plea. Please go out there, read a book, look at your Instagram. It's not a trend, okay? You don't post a little black square on your Instagram and get to claim,
there, I did my part. I've donated all this money. Look how good I am.
Go talk to your international friend and ask them if they've ever felt unwanted. Go talk to your Spanish, your Black, your LGBTQ, any person who is at a disadvantage in this society, your trans friend. They're not just there for you to staple up, oh look, they're not just there for you to sit there and point at and be like, hey, see, I'm not racist, I'm inclusive. Diversity and inclusion. They're a person, and it's time for you to speak up and start thinking about that. And finally, I'd just like to leave you with the third and final thing. Keep learning and start accepting the fact that you don't know everything. If you wake up every day and you tell yourself, I don't know everything, these are the privileges that I have, these are the disadvantages that I have, and it's okay for me to be called out, and it's okay for people to say, hey, I didn't like how you said that, that really affected me. Somebody else to call you out and be like, hey, that really affected my friend, or you shouldn't say that, because somebody else is gonna sit there and read that or post that and see that and feel like shit. Then you should sit there and probably take the time to be like, hey, you're right. It's not a time for you to get defensive. It's not a time for you to argue. I'm sick of it. It's literally not the time for you to be polite and nice. It's time for you to stand up, start talking, and start actively being a good ally. You need to actively be a good ally. You need to constantly be in a state of learning. It's time to listen and grow and move on. We need to move on from this racist society. We need to move on from the times of when being ignorant was acceptable. If you got anything from this video, honestly, I don't know. I had to get it off my chest. It was just ridiculous. And I just wanted to end by reading a few more of the experiences that some of the students have faced in my campus that just kind of spoke to me. It's from the same Instagram account where I saw this morning, and I've struggled with that too. Like a lot of times where it's like I see the injustices and I see how fucked up something is, and I'm like, oh, but it's not my place to say, oh, that's fucked up that you just said that. That's me being complicit. That's me being a part of the problem, because you don't know what people's reactions are in the moment. If somebody just said something racist to me, I might be shocked into silence. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know how that's gonna affect somebody later on who isn't even reflecting or just laughs it off. And me sitting there and quiet, just silent, not reacting, not adding to the conversation in a productive way, is me being just as racist, just as compliant, just as accepting of racist, ignorant ideology. And I think that's what people need to sit down and think about. Like truly think about. They just kind of spoke to me, and you know, they're anonymous. You can go check out this Instagram, and I hope that whoever made this account doesn't feel targeted. I'm totally not coming at you. I think what you're doing is great. Some people just don't have the courage to sit there and go on and on. Not people deal with things very differently. Some people don't have the courage to sit there and keep fighting and keep preaching the same exact thing. If you kept telling somebody the same exact thing over and over and over again and they weren't listening, why would you waste your time? Eventually you'd adapt and you'd be like, it's just how things are. It's just how they believe. So don't stay silent. I'm actually gonna read 3 posts, and I'd want to leave you with this because like I want to be proactive, but I recognize my privilege and I recognize the fact that maybe I'm not experiencing these things. And yes, I've had people be very racist and weird and ignorant towards me in the past, but it's worse for people that are of darker complexion, are trans, or they're living with parents that are not as understanding to their growth, their education, or whatever it may be. I decided that I want to end this video by just reading off some of the anonymous posts, and I'll just read it word for word, so if you see me looking down, just know that I'm just reading off my laptop. The first one is, I often felt the burden of bringing the diversity component into the classroom. As an international student, I often felt I had to examine topics related to my background, but also about many other things considered foreign and not mainstream. Dialogue, learn from and with others, and I am tired of being asked to bring up things that should be in the curriculum even before college. The reality is not the trendsetting of the world. I am also a local somewhere, and it is not my duty to know and feel comfortable explaining things people deem different, exotic, and an exception. Somebody else wrote, I'm brown. To many that means ethnic. Sometimes the same guy would DM me and all my friends. When we would ask his friends why, they would say he has a thing for brown chicks. Stop putting us all into the tiny box made of your own satisfaction. I just really like this. I clicked on the wrong one, so I guess it's gonna be 4 now, but this person sent in anonymously, and it says you're Sleep's classmate, so like, I hear you, buddy. That is very, very true. And they said, yes, I am different. In fact, being international makes me extra unique. I come here with enough knowledge of math to take me through college. Math that I can explain to you in 3 different languages. My accent can vouch for that. I thought that was so good. And same, like, it's insane how America looks at immigrants and people that came here to learn as different or as like less than, when in fact, like, if anything, we should be putting them above us because they're smart. They literally they're smart, they're strong, they have fought through so much just to get here, and then you're gonna sit there and treat them like they're the ones that have to be teaching you something, or you're gonna sit there and tell them that it's your responsibility to teach me because I've been ignorant my whole life. Well, that's not an excuse anymore. Get up and go do your own goddamn research. Just saying. I really like a lot of them, so I don't know which one to like focus on. This one really like came from my heart because I have experienced this in a few different ways. Not this exact experience, but somebody said,
I'm sorry.
I get emotional because it took me a really long time to like be happy with who I am and like just my culture and where I come from, and realize all the things that was said in my own family that just weren't right. So then when I hear stories like this, it just kind of hits me in that place where you're like, ah, dang it. So I'm gonna end with this one. This was again from a SLU classmate of mine. I don't know where, but you're out there, SLU alumni collected and whatnot. And it says, we were already tipsy, hanging around campus. We were a group of international students, almost all Spanish speakers. We were celebrating at Pub 56, speaking Spanish and laughing, when a group of white male students called us spec, or spic, a derogatory term for Spanish speakers. My friends tried to distract me from it because they knew this could really ruin the night for almost all of us. Your biggest support system truly is the people around you, and I will attest to that. Yeah, there's been a lot of times where it's like, try to focus on yourself and what you're doing, but like me and my friend Jenny, like we get super weird looks when we're speaking Spanish on campus, and sometimes I will
be the first one to admit that I am very freaking loud.
It's just how I am. I speak loudly. I'm not afraid to speak as loud as I want to in the moment, and if we're in public, then deal with it. I'm sorry that you don't feel confident enough to speak up, but I am doing it. So but anyway, all that to say that sometimes we'll be speaking Spanish around campus and people will give us weird looks. There's always somebody laughing and staring at us, giving you those weird looks where it's like you feel like everybody is judging you, especially when you go to a school that's predominantly white. You kind of feel like it's almost like as if you're outing yourself, like especially if you're of lighter complexion. This is shitty to say, but it's like a genuine feeling that sometimes you get, and it's wrong. I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't have to hide who I am. I shouldn't have to pretend like, oh, I don't speak Spanish. And it's something that a lot of Spanish speakers themselves, they'll be surprised when they hear, oh, wait, you speak Spanish? Or like, I'll sit there understanding everything they're saying, but I won't speak up or like answer, because for the longest time I've separated my school life and my house life. At school, I grew up in Ohio, which is very, very white, and it's fine, but it definitely changed me in ways that I'm glad I experienced it, because now I'm better for it and I understand why it was wrong. But I shouldn't have to have experienced that. Put in a position where people would look at me funny if I ever spoke Spanish, or my mom came to pick me up and I would have to translate for my adult mom as like a 5-year-old, like, oh, this is happening. That's why for the longest time I didn't speak to people. Back in the day, I had an accent. The first 4 years of my life were spent in the Dominican Republic, so I only knew Spanish, and then when I came here, it was very difficult for me to learn English, and I was already embarrassed by the fact that I felt behind. In DR, I made it to the 2nd grade and I was advanced in my classes, and then I come here, and because I don't understand your language or I can't keep up yet, all of a sudden I'm an outsider. I'm the designated Spanish Mexican friend. For the longest time I thought I was Mexican. I had no idea. I'm a kid. If a kid is surrounded by a bunch of other kids that are telling them, it was from like kindergarten all the way up to the 7th grade, if I'm surrounded by people telling me like, you're the outsider, giving me looks, it's all like subliminal and stuff. I'm not a psychologist or whatever, but the first thing that I'm gonna think and assume is that, oh yeah, speaking Spanish is not something that I should do. So I'll speak Spanish a little quietly. I'll dim myself to make you feel comfortable. Why? I don't have to do anything to please you and your ignorance. If you are uncomfortable by me speaking, then that seems like a you problem. As simple as that. So me and my friend Jenny will speak, and I honestly love Jenny because she's very shy and she's very quiet. And
most people at my campus maybe don't know her, and I don't know if she would necessarily be excited that I'm like saying her name. I'll ask her later. But
I admire her because she doesn't let herself be influenced by what others think. She sits there, and yeah, sometimes you get down about what you think other people assume about you, but she really is her own person, and she sits there and she doesn't care to speak Spanish as quietly or loudly as she wants. People don't believe me that she's loud, but trust me, she gets loud. She laughs. She is just as crazy as me sometimes. But I think that I relate to that because it's like years of feeling like, of being in a country where you feel like the other, or your family feels feels like the other. You can't necessarily connect with those around you, and then you just feel like you have to separate things and you have to dim yourself so that you could fit in or be a part of it. But with Jenny, it's more like me and her are speaking. None of you are involved. This is a public space, and if you're offended by how loud I am or the joy and the happiness that I have speaking my language with my friend, you're offended. That's your problem. If you're fascinated, curious, oh my gosh, what are they saying? Come say hi, say hello, speak to us. Compliment us on the fact that we know 2 languages. Don't stare, don't be ignorant. Go educate yourself. Make a new friend with this whole pandemic and stuff. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to challenge ourselves. I personally do way too much reading for my own good, and I get way too much in my head. So I'm challenging myself to go try and do more runs, even if it is with a mask. Try to be more active, try to take care of my health, my mental and physical. If you're more of a sporty kind of person, and I actually had this conversation with another friend of mine, he's freaking out. He's, and I love him. I truly do. He's literally tries his very hardest to learn and to grow. And that's why I appreciate and admire him, because I've called him out, I think, a lot in some of the things that he said. And it wasn't me trying to be a bitch or trying to just like start problems all the time. But yes, he would get upset and he'd just walk away. But he always came back and he would always apologize, or he would recognize that and learn and grow from it. And then he'd be like,
Hey, I realized what I said was wrong. I'm an asshole. I'm sorry.
And it's like, he learned, he grew. Those are the kind of people I want to be surrounded by. Not the people that are ignorant as fuck. He's devastated that he can't play football. And I understand that. And that's understandable. You can be upset, but it's also takes strength and like just self-awareness and growth for you to sit back and realize that, no, I don't get to do this leisurely activity that my parents can afford to send me to do. That I don't have to work 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever jobs to try to play something that I love. That I don't have to sit here and wonder how I'm going to afford my equipment next semester. That's a privilege. That is legitimately a privilege. And you taking up time to ask thousands of times, because it's not just you, because we're at a predominantly white school. Now imagine that times how many, there's like 100 football players. So imagine 100 football players that are mostly white calling to ask about why will we have sports. We're in a pandemic. The school is running around crazy trying to figure out how they're going to get us back on campus safely. And you're worried about if you get to see your son throw a ball in a game. Yes, that's made you passionate. It's made you learn teamwork. It's made you go really close with friends that are going to be there for the rest of your life. Fine. But people are dying. Racism still exists. It's time for you to wake up and start educating yourself. And I don't know. I've been like screaming at my camera for way longer, and I am going to have to edit this because I get really rambly. But thanks for watching. If you took the time to listen or to hear what I've said, I try to outline my points as clearly as I could. I literally just wrote 3 points on a sticky note back there, but that's just me being transparent. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you're inspired at all by anything that I said, you don't have to do much. It's all about you and what you want to do to better yourself. And if you can do that, you can do it as quietly or as loudly as possible. I think that's important. And for even taking a baby step. Yes, it's not significantly some great thing that you accomplished. It's a step in the right direction, and that's where we need to start going. So, again,
Shut up. I gotta stop rambling.
oh my god. Okay, thank you for watching. Quick thing that I missed. Please check on your friends. Be kind to yourself. I know I get really passionate and I start speaking. I just start yelling and rambling all over the place, but check on your friend. Be nice to yourself. Be kind. That's literally the message of this all. I don't mean to come off as like too much or too pushy. My intentions are never in like a negative place, but be kind to one another. Kind to the people that are trying, because at least they're trying. I could try as hard as I can. It'll never be enough. And I know that, but I need you to know that. And to any of my friends, if I said anything in here about you or alluded to a situation, I'm sorry. Ask you, I'm gonna send you this first. Sorry. Okay, bye. There and prejudice. I have to separate. I have to compartmentalize pods that is trying to why you're not being productive. I wrote that. Honestly, whoever created this account, please, you're doing a great job. Please keep doing that. This is the kind of stories that we need.